Legacies or inheritances are one of your main sources of progression and long-term investment in Umamusume. After you finish a run, you're given a veteran runner that you can use to improve your future runs. Understanding the mechanics of how to build strong inheritances is essential to better results and increasing the power level of your account. Each Umamusume has two parents. The two parents of the chosen parent will then act as the grandparents. When building your legacies, grandparents are typically less important than your parents, but all of them contribute to the strength of the legacy. Some important things to know. You cannot choose the same Umamusume to be both parents even if they're alts. For example, you cannot choose Takey Shuttle and Summer Camp Takey Shuttle to be both of your parents. However, the same Umamusume can act as a parent and as a grandparent in the other legacy. There are 5 main components of a legacy that you need to understand. There is the blue spark, the pink spark, the green spark, the white sparks, and then your affinity level. Let's start with the blue sparks. Blue sparks are related to the 5 stats. These sparks provide whatever the stat it corresponds to at the beginning of the run and during your 2 inspiration events. They also increase the stat cap of whatever stat they correspond to. They come in 3 ranks: 1 star, 2 star, and 3 star. 1 star provides 5 to the stat and 4 to the cap. 2 stars provides 12 to the stat and 9 to the cap. And 3 star provides 24 to the stat and 18 to the cap during your initial inspiration. You will always get a singular blue spark at the end of your run. What blue spark you get is up to chance, but you can increase the odds due to your actions in the run. Each stat has a 20% chance to roll. Once a stat is rolled, the odds of getting each star is determined by the amount of stats you got in that run. So, for example, if you got between 0 and 599, you have a 90% chance of getting a 1-star spark, a 10% chance of getting a 2-star spark, and a 0% chance of getting a 3-star spark. If you got between 600 and 1099, you have a 45% chance to get a 1-star spark, a 50% chance to get a 2-star spark, and a 5% chance of getting a 3-star spark. If you got over 1100, you have a 20% chance of getting a 1-star spark, a 70% chance of getting a 2-star spark, and a 10% chance of getting a 3-star spark. Blue sparks are incredibly useful. In a nutshell, they give you extra stats that you did not have to work for in your campaign. All 5 stats are useful, even guts. It's just the dreaded 1-star spark that doesn't provide that much. If you have fully maxed out blue sparks, that can provide an extra 300 to 400 stats over the course of a run. Moving on to the next type of sparks, pink sparks. Now these sparks correspond to aptitudes, that being the track, the distance, and the style. You use these to increase their inheritors' attributes. In this example, this runner has an A in turf, an A in sprint, an A in mile, and an A in pace. With our pink sparks, we're able to raise her attribute from an E to an A in medium. Even runners with poor aptitudes can achieve A and S ranks, assuming that you have the right pink sparks. Your pink sparks are acquired at the end of the run based off of the attributes your runner has. Each A and S has a chance to be rolled. They all have an equal chance. So in the first case, A in turf, A in medium, A in long, A in front, A in pace. That means that it can roll any of those. The second case, she has an A in turf, an A in medium, an A in long, an A in front, an A in pace, an A in late, and an A in end. That means she can roll any of those. The only ones she can't roll are dirt, sprint, and mile. And if she sparks mile A during the run, she will be able to spark mile. When your pink spark is rolled at the end of your career, you have a 70% chance to get a 1-star, a 20% chance to get a 2-star, and a 10% chance to get a 3-star. There is no way to increase these chances. Having it be an S rank does not increase your chances of getting it. Pink sparks cannot be used to raise an aptitude to S from the beginning, only to A. You need your classic and senior year inspirations to raise that aptitude from an A to an S. Furthermore, it takes more pink sparks to raise an aptitude the lower it is. If your aptitude is lower than an E, no matter how many sparks you have at the beginning, you cannot raise it to an A from the beginning. Having the right aptitudes for track, distance, and style can make or break your run in your future escapades, in team trials, in champion meets, or as a parent or grandparent themselves. An S in distance is usually comparable to about 2 to 3 lengths, give or take. depending on the track. Typically, distance is the most valuable, followed by track, then style. If you want to learn more about the difference between A, B, and S rank for your aptitudes, please check out the first video in this series, which should be on the screen now. Next, we have Green Sparks. Green Sparks allow you to inherit the ultimates from other runners. These ultimates can turn even the most middling runner into a beast, assuming that you inherit the right ones. Green Sparks are arguably the most important type of spark, and they generally separate the good parents from the bad parents. So Green Sparks work differently than our previously discussed sparks. One of the ways that they work differently is that you will always inherit your parents' unique as a skill hint. You don't automatically inherit it, unlike with stats and with aptitudes. The higher the stars, the steeper the hint discount. Your grandparents' green sparks are not given as a hint unless you receive them during your classic or senior year inspiration. Green sparks are also different in that you only receive them at the end of a career if your trainee is 3 stars or higher. Your chances of getting 3 stars is tied to the ending level of the skills. If you've upgraded your skill twice, you're more likely to get a 3-star spark than a 3-star Umamusume who didn't upgrade her ability at all. Green sparks truly are one of the most important things to understand. Because of this, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about what are some of the good green sparks for every single style and some other generically good ones. So we'll start with front runners. The gold standard for green sparks is Seiyun Sky's angling and scheming. This skill is almost always good on every single front runner. Other good front runner green sparks include El Condor Pasa and Kitasan Blacks. Kitasan Blacks usually works better on longer distances, but all 3 of these are useful parents to create. For pace chasers, Keiki Shuttle and Nishino Flower make up the core of most pace chaser inheritances. Super Creek or Halloween Altar can be a good inheritance, especially on shorter tracks. Majiro Ryan's Let's Pump Some Iron is very good on late surgers and end closers, and typically works on most tracks. Majiro Dober's also fits into this category. King Halo's, it'll work well on sprints and miles, and less good on mediums and longs. Other good inheritances. These are generally more general. Marzensky provides a good accelerator inheritance that works on certain tracks. Hers is more unique in that it'll work for front runners, pace chasers, late surgers, and even end closers sometimes. Symboli Rudolph gives a good velocity skill that typically works best on end closers and late surgers because she needs to pass people. Oguri Cap's Triumphant Pulse is a very strong velocity skill that typically works best on miles to mediums and works best typically on pace chasers and late surgers. New Year TM Opera O's unique is very strong, typically on medium tracks, but can work practically anywhere. Fuji Kiseki, her recently buffed ultimate, works very well on pace chasers and front runners. Goldchip's unique is very good to inflate your score in team trials and is used to bring dominators into CMs where they don't typically belong, be that sprints, miles, or longs. And Special Week, her Ruler of Japan alt has a very, very good skill specifically for Arima Keenan. These are only a handful of very good green sparks that you can work to make inheritances for. One type of uniques that I didn't touch on at all are healing uniques, which are very, very good on mediums and longs, and are almost essential when building something like Christmas Oguri. And speaking of Christmas Oguri, when inheriting your uniques, you need to understand that these uniques are weaker than their base versions. They usually have both less effect and less duration. Another way they differ is that they require you to pass a wit check to activate. Just because an ultimate is good does not mean that it inherits well. Christmas Oguri is the prime example of this. Her unique drops in effectiveness by almost 80 to 90%. Make sure to do your own research if you are unsure if a unique inherits well. Another thing to note, in all of the cases mentioned before, all of the green uniques, it was general advice. Just because it usually works doesn't mean it always works. Be sure to check before you go into a CM with angling and scheming, only to realize that there is not a final corner on the track and you do not have an ultimate. Next, we'll talk about white sparks. Now, white sparks are like green sparks in that they provide hints for skills and you need them to spark in your classic and senior year inspirations. How you achieve white sparks is they are given based off of what G1s you won, what skills you bought, and if the scenario is beaten. They are also different in that there is no limit in how many white sparks you can have. You can have 0 white sparks. You could have 50 white sparks. There is no limit to how many white sparks you can have. White sparks have a base 20% chance to be added to your legacy. If you have a double circle in that skill, that increases to 25%. Gold skills increase the chances of inheriting that skill to 40%. You cannot, however, inherit that gold skill. An example of this is No Stopping Me in Nimble Navigator. Nimble Navigator is the white version of this. No Stopping Me is the gold version of this. If you buy No Stopping Me and you get the skill, it will be a white spark for Nimble Navigator. Another thing to know, winning a G1 multiple times does not increase your chances of getting that spark. If you won a Rima Keenan twice, your chances of getting the Rima Keenan spark is still 20%. If your parents and grandparents also have that white spark, it can increase the chances of getting that white spark. If you refer to the table below, you can see how it linearly increases. You can have anywhere from getting a 20% chance of having a spark all the way up to a 70% chance of having that white spark. Another thing that affects your white spark is your final rating. If you hit SS in your career, that increases the chances that you get stars, and if you can hit UE, it increases your chances even more. Something important to know about these white spark stars. These do not affect the power of the spark, only the chances that the spark will proc. A 1-star spark can give the same amount of hints as a 3-star spark. 1-star sparks have a base 3% chance, 2-star sparks have a base 6% chance, and 3-star sparks have a base 9% chance. Race sparks are slightly different in that they have a base 1% chance multiplied by the amount of stars. So if you have 3 stars, you have a 3% chance. There are 3 main types of white sparks. There are skill sparks, race sparks, and scenario sparks. Skill sparks you acquire by buying said skill. They provide a skill hint when they are sparked. Examples of that would be a groundwork spark or an Uma stand spark. Race sparks. These are acquired by winning a G1. They provide stats and sometimes a hint based on the race. Examples being Tenosho Autumn Spark and Arima Keenan. The Arima Keenan Spark gives guts and it gives a skill hint for knocking on a race course. Lastly, we have the Scenario Spark. These are acquired for winning the scenario and they provide large amounts of stats based on the scenario. The last thing that needs to be understood is your affinity. Affinity increases the chances of having a good inspiration event. Each trainee has a based affinity with every other trainers. You can find calculators, such as the game Tora Affinity Calculator, linked below, but generally, runners that are more similar will have higher affinity with each other. For example, Sakura Bokushino and Teiki Shuttle have good affinity with each other. That is because they're both pace chasers that run on turf and have good sprint and mile aptitudes. In contrast, Sotono Diamond does not have good affinity with Sakura Bokushino. This is because Sotono Diamond is a late surger who specializes in mediums and longs. If you are building a legacy, you want higher affinity. Other things to know about affinity. Your affinity can also be increased by running the same G1s in a campaign. Each shared G1 increases your affinity by 3. This was actually recently nerfed from Track Blazer, where every graded race would give you an increase to your affinity. Now it's only G1s that give increases to affinities. So how do you read affinities? Outside of the calculators, there is no way to know what your actual affinity is, except for by the affinity circles. If you have a triangle, that means that you have less than 50 affinity. If you have a circle, that means you have anywhere from 51 to 149 affinity. And if you have a double circle, you have 150 plus affinity. As a general rule, if you have double circle, that means that your affinity is probably good enough. Something important to know about affinities. If the same trainee appears in the legacy as a grandparent, their affinity is reduced to 0. So we've talked a little bit about the initial inspiration, and I've alluded to the classic and senior year inspiration. let's talk a little bit more about how those two inspirations work. These inspirations occur twice during early April Classic Year and early April Senior Year. During this event, you have a chance to activate all of your sparks. They are different from your initial inspiration in a few different ways. First is that these inspirations are affected by RNG in your affinity level rather than being entirely predictable. A 3-star blue spark in your initial inspiration, you know exactly what it's going to do. A 3-star blue spark in your other inspiration events is not entirely consistent. This is your first opportunity to spark your white sparks in your green grandparent sparks. And lastly, this is your opportunity to spark S rank in aptitudes. In order to understand inspirations, you need to understand this equation. It looks worse than it actually is. It's actually pretty easy to understand. So, in order to see what chance you have for a spark to spark, you need to take the base odds, and then you multiply it by 1 plus your affinity score divided by 100. So, what does this mean in practice? If you have an affinity score of 0, you would just have base odds. An affinity of 50 would multiply the base odds by 1.5. 100 would multiply it by 2, and 200 would multiply it by 3. The base odds are these. Your blue sparks have a 70% chance to spark if they're a 1-star, an 80% chance to spark if they're a 2-star, and a 90% chance to spark if they're 3 stars. Your pink sparks go up by 1% each star. Green sparks go up 5% for each spark. Your race whites go up 1% for each star, and your other whites go up 3% for each star. Something else to know about these inspiration events. Blue sparks, rather than giving a set amount of stat, they roll a random number based off of the number of stars that spark has. If you have a 1-star, you roll a number between 1 and 10. 2 stars, you roll a number between 1 and 16. 3 stars, you roll a number between 1 and 28. Your blue sparks also increase the stat cap for that stat. Something to know is that the higher the star level, the less likely you are to roll a low number. If you have a 1-star, you're more likely to roll low numbers. If you have a 3-star, you're more likely to roll higher numbers. However, this does not preclude having bad inspiration events. If you have a 3-star spark, you can still roll a 1. However, on average, 3-star sparks are better than 1-star sparks. As you saw from the last slide, blue sparks are incredibly likely to spark. However, low affinity can cause them to fail. Other things to know about inspirations. The gold inspiration. This does not mean that you had a good inspiration. All this means is that a 3-star spark sparked where a 2-star would not have. The other thing to know, affinity is rolled separately. For each parent or grandparent, they check their affinity and roll. 0 and low affinity grandparents and parents will have bad odds compared to your good affinity. I have not been able to find the odds, but based off of my own experiences, I know that it does not check your full affinity and apply it. So that was a lot of information. What do we do with all of it? Well, let's start with what are the main uses of legacies. The main uses for legacies is you use them to fill essential stats that are hard to gain with whatever current deck you're using. You will commonly see this with power, stamina, and wit. You'll see this with power when running speed and wit decks, stamina when the race is longer, and wit when running guts decks. You use legacies to obtain certain skills that make or break campaigns. Some classic examples include groundwork, Uma stand, green skills, and nimble navigator. You use them to obtain uniques from other runners. Classic examples being let's pump some iron, angling and scheming, and shooting for victory. And the last main uses for legacies is you get your distance or track up to an S. Legacies are typically better when they're specialized. What do I mean by specialized? A 9-star medium will generally be more desirable than a legacy with 3-star pace chaser, 3-star sprint, and 3-star medium. Both have 9-star pink sparks, but one is highly specialized and will be more useful for when you want to raise your medium aptitude. This goes the same for blue sparks and white sparks. Your 9-star power spark is generally better than a mixed spark. Your white sparks should ideally correspond with whatever sparks are provided. If the pink spark is medium, it should provide medium skills, medium corners, medium straightaways. If the green spark is good for pace chasers, your white spark should correspond with pace chaser skills, pace chaser straightaways, pace chaser savvy. In a platonic ideal situation, you would have perfect sparks, 3 stars on everything, all of the skills. Now this is frankly unachievable. With time, effort, and luck, you can improve and create good legacies. Time to apply everything we've learned to give your best chances to making good legacies. First piece of advice that I will give: do more runs. You don't expect good legacies to immediately start showing up. There's a lot of luck involved. For me personally, it took 20 days for me to get my first 3-star blue spark when I was starting out. Another piece of advice: you need to know when to shift from an ace run to a parent run. Aces for your champions meets require a lot of stuff that a good parent doesn't. You need your distance S, your inherited uniques. You need to hit certain stat thresholds. If you miss these, it's better to shift to parent farming tactics instead of wasting the run. If you don't know who to run runners with good inheritances. You're going to be a lot happier if you get good RNG and good sparks on a Majiro Ryan rather than a Hishi Amazon. You should try and avoid raising unneeded aptitudes. A stray sprint or medium spark may help Marzensky marginally run better in a run, but it also reduces her chances of sparking Mile by 8%. Only include aptitudes that are wanted or needed. Remember your stat thresholds. 3-star blue sparks are only available after 600. If all of your stats are 600 at the end of a run, your chances of getting a 3-star spark is 5%. SS improves your chances of getting 3-star white sparks by 100%, and it reduces the chances of getting 1-star sparks by over half. Remember that you have 5 borrows every single day. You only need to be able to field 1 good parent. Uma.Moe allows you to search their database for exactly what you're looking for. Link below. Don't underestimate 2-star blue sparks. Legacies are a sum of their parts, and hyper-focusing on 3-star blue sparks is a common mistake players make. Having good white, green, and pink sparks are oftentimes more important than having a 3-star blue spark. When building your legacies, first, buy your essential skills. Your Uma stand, your groundworks, these skills that make or break your ace runs. After you buy those, try to buy generic skills where possible. A skill like Slipstream works on anyone, whereas something like Shrewd Step is only useful if you are running a pace chaser. After that, buy things related to style. Since you are building your inspiration for a specific style, it'll be more likely to be usable than something that is not related to that style. For example, pace chaser corners when running Takey Shuttle. Lastly, focus on skills that are related to the distance you are running. So medium corners, medium straightaways. The reason why style is above distance is because you have much more control over what style you are running rather than what distance you eventually spark at the end. Last thing to note, spark rerolling. Spark rerolling is a new addition. It allows you to spend 30 TP at the end of the run and reroll your sparks. You then choose between those 2 legacies and you discard one of them. Whichever one you choose is your legacy, and you can only reroll immediately after the run. This is essentially a time-saving tool. Another run would provide much the same thing. This just allows you to double the amount of seen legacies in half the amount of time. If you want to maximize them, only reroll if your chances of getting something good are good. Your stats are above 1,100. Your SS rank or higher. You have a good spread of skills. You won a lot of G1s. Otherwise, rerolling is not recommended over just doing another run. However, if you are not going to use that TP anyways, just reroll the sparks, even if the spark is good. Because if you roll something better, you can choose that, and if you don't, you can keep the original spark. How do you plan your parents? Parents can be as specific or as general as you want. Some people will build parents for every single CM, whereas others will build very generalized parents. Typically, generalized parents will have more longevity, where specialized parents have more power. If you're starting out and you don't have a lot of good legacies, I would recommend building more generalized parents, as longevity and universality are more important than pure power. We will now go into the pros and cons of running each scenario, starting with finale. So for pros, it is quick and easy. There's not a whole lot going on. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. You can be in and out in 15 to 20 minutes very easily. You can get skill hints. This is the only place you can get skill hints for the racing spirits. And in Ura Finale, you get the Ura Finale Spark, which gives you speed and stamina. However, the disadvantages for Ura Finale are it's harder to hit high ranks and hit high stats, and it is harder than the other scenarios to get skill hints. Unity Cup, like Ura Finale, is quick and easy to run. You can get skill hints for the Ignited Spirit. Some of these Ignited Spirits are very good. Ignited Spirit Power and Ignited Spirit Wit are both good sparks to have in certain situations. You have the Unity Cup spark, which increases your power and your wit. Unity Cup is the easiest scenario to hit higher ranks with, meaning that it is easy to hit SS rank and above. And the last main advantage to Unity Cup is you will always receive skill hints for Ramp Up and for Nimble Navigator. The one main downside to Unity Cup is your other skill hints are highly RNG dependent. They are based off of your spirit bursts, and they will give you whatever that spirit burst is specialized in. It doesn't matter if you're running a sprinter or a pace chaser, it can give you end closer skills, and it can give you medium skills. The last scenario we will be talking about is the dreaded Track Blazer. Track Blazer has the most advantages, but also the most disadvantages. Track Blazer gives you complete freedom in whatever races that you run. If you are running a sprinter and you don't want to run Tenno Show Spring or the Kika Show, you don't have to, even if the base version would have to run those races. Your rival races provide you a lot of skill hints. These skill hints will be based off of what style you're running in, what type of race you just ran in, or something more generalized. You can get the TS Climax Scenario Spark, which provides guts and stamina. And Track Blazer is an incredibly consistent scenario. If you know how to run it, you can hit SS pretty much every single time. However, there are some major disadvantages. The biggest one is that Track Blazer is incredibly time consuming. Where the other scenarios might take you 15 to 20 minutes to run, Track Blazer takes anywhere from 30 to 50 minutes to finish. Track Blazer also has the problem of consuming a lot of clocks. And if your clock count is low after running Track Blazers for 3 months, you might not have a whole lot of them anymore. The biggest disadvantage, I think, is that certain runners need spark investments to improve their poor aptitudes. If you don't inherently have good mile ability, you need to devote a lot of sparks that could be going elsewhere in order to increase your mile aptitude. And the last major downside is no secret events. In some cases, no secret events is an advantage. In other cases, it takes away a way to get skill hints. A classic example is Mayano Top Gun, who, if you complete her secret event, you get skill hints in all of the acceleration skills. Let's take everything we've learned from this video and see what it might look like in a practical scenario. So in this example, I am going to build a Majiro Ryan parent. Majiro Ryan has a very, very good acceleration skill for late surgers and will be generally useful. So we're going to start on the Game Torah Affinity Calculator, and we are going to select Majiro Ryan. And you can click this recommended to see who has good affinity with her. We have all of these different choices. But from what I already know, I want Majiro Dober to be one of my other legacies. She has a similarly good acceleration skill. And as you can see in this calculator, she has pretty good affinity. She doesn't have the best, but she has very good. She's tied for third. The other legacy that I am going to choose is Narita Bryan. Now, for Narita Bryan, she's tied with Majiro Dober for having very good affinity, third place. She also has a unique that, while being less universally good as Dober, her unique is good on certain tracks. It is a nice thing to have. As you can see, there's a bunch of other choices that you can do. Oguri Cap is also a nice choice from this list. But these are the two that I'm going to do while building this legacy. So something else that I know I don't have is I do not have Narita Bryan. So it's impossible for me to have a parent for her. And I know I don't have any friends that have her. This is where the beauty of Uma.Moe's database comes in. So in this case, we're going to look for one. So we're going to open up the filters, and I'm going to open up the advanced filter. And I want to find Narita Bryan. And then in this, you can adjust certain things. So I'm going to say that I want a 3-star Power Spark. For the pink factors, the aptitudes, I am going to want medium. I'm going to try and build a medium Majiro Ryan for this thing. For the green factors, I don't really care. And white factors, let's say I want Uma Stan. All right, so we put in all of this. Let's see if anything has popped up. And look, we have something exactly what we're looking for. She has a 3-star Power Spark, she has a 3-star Medium Spark, and she has a 2-star Uma Stan Spark. So I can copy this trainer ID and then add them to my friends list in the game. So we'll go to my friends list. Just copy and paste that. We will follow them. Now, we're going to try and do this in Unity Cup because I want Nimble Navigator. And Unity Cup is the easiest way to get Nimble Navigator hints. I think that that will be the most useful. It's also less time consuming. I don't need to devote any sparks for Mile for this. So I'm going to just do this in Unity Cup. So we'll start with one of the guests. Reset our filters. And let's find that Narita Bryan right here. So with that one parent, we're already at triple affinity. We're at the double circle affinity. So we're above 150 affinity. Very good. So our second legacy, we wanted it to be Majiro Dober. So I'm gonna find Majiro Dober. I know I have at least 2 legacies for Majiro Dober. Must have missed her. There she is. So we have 2 choices from Majiro Dobers that I've saved. We have this one that gives speed, but unfortunately, he gives a Mile Spark, and we don't really want that. Her skills are good. Basically, everything about this is good except for that Mile Spark. Let's look at the other one. So obviously 2-star speed is worse than 3-star speed, but it provides medium. And her skills are fine. The other ones are frankly better, but that medium spark is really, really important. Unfortunately, she has herself in the legacy, but ultimately that doesn't matter all that much because we are trying to build this as a parent rather than as an ace. So once we're finished with this, Majiro Ryan will be out of our legacy. But it is something to note, especially since the other one doesn't have her. Another reason why this one isn't as good, in my opinion, for what we're doing, is these long sparks. We will spark long A at the very least, which will reduce our chances of getting a medium spark. So all of that combined to make this spark better. So we'll do this run, and I'll comment on anything important that happens, any decisions that are specific for this run. So over the course of that run, I bought a few skills to help me. Obviously, winning more races will help you more. But at the end, you should have a decent amount of skills. So what should you buy? Well, if this is solely going to be a parent run, you should never buy any of your green skills. These do not provide you any chances for hints, anything like that. This would just be a waste of 120 of your skill points. Green skills can be very good, especially if you're trying to build something specialized for a CM. Gold skills obviously give you the most for it. So we're going to take, at the beginning at least, corner adept and straightaway adept, because these two are generically good. Doesn't matter who the runner is, they could probably use corner adept and straightaway adept. They're also very cheap. We're going to skip something like focus. Focus is also somewhat generically good, but it's better on things like front runners. We're building a late surger, so our late starts do not hurt us as much. We're going to buy ramp up, generically good. We're going to buy no stopping me. Again, nimble navigator is a generically good skill that is good on basically everyone, maybe not some front runners. No stopping me increases our chances of getting it. We're going to buy outer swell. Very good late surger skill. I'll think about these up tempo and killer tunes, since we're trying to build a medium parent here. Medium straightaways I will buy, just because it's very, very cheap. Late surger corners, generically good on late surgers. Now, Umamusme. This was the reason we brought the Story to Brian parent, so we're definitely buying that. Gonna buy Tail Held High, again, generically good. I'm going to buy this Ignited Spirit Power, also generically good. So, we still have a decent amount of points left, so I'm going to buy Fighter. I'm going to buy at least up tempo. Like, there's an argument to buy one of these green skills, maybe firm conditions. Usually it's firm conditions on most tracks, maybe rainy days. But I'm just going to buy its on to get a better chance of ramp up. All right, and we look at this. We have pretty good chances. We have a 10% chance to get, if we roll speed, to get a speed spark. Same with power and wit. And everything is above 600. So we have at least a chance of getting a 3-star spark for anything. If we look at our aptitudes, we have about a 25% on rolling medium. So, see what we get. So, unfortunately, we low rolled on stamina. We low rolled on pace chaser. However, we did get the nimble navigator, late surger corners, the unity cup. So I'm going to actually re-roll these sparks. I'm going to restore it with it. Usually I wouldn't do this, but I want to show off. This is an opportunity where re-rolling would be a good thing. So we're going to re-roll. And this one. So 3-star turf can be very good. The speed, it's way better than the 1-star stamina. And the sparks, they're all right. We still have the Unity Cup. We still have the late searcher corners. We lose Nimble Navigator. We lose the corner adept. Overall, I think that this one is a slightly better parent. So I'm going to keep that one. But if it was up to me, I'm not really satisfied with this parent, and I would just do it again. So off camera, I did a little bit of grinding. I did a few more runs, and I got this one pretty soon after I did that one run. And this I would call a pretty good parent. 2-star stamina, which is all right. 3-star medium, which is very good. Exactly what we were looking for. The race sparks are whatever, but they're nice to have. Corner adept, nimble navigator. 2-star Uma stand. Small breather's nice. Playtime's over is kind of generically useful. Ignited spirit speed and ignited spirit stamina, also nice to have. All of this combined to make a pretty good parent. 8-star medium, very nice to have. So, as you can see, got it basically right after this one. The absolute last thing that I want to touch upon is parent looping. In a nutshell, parent looping is where you choose 4 runners with high affinity and you loop them. You run one parent until you get a decent one, and then you move on to the next parent in the chain. You repeat until you have the desired legacy. This has a lot of pros and cons. The main pros are, after initial setup, it requires very little thought. You just go down the line. You can build up a very powerful generalized legacy progressively. The last main advantage is it can give direction to directionless players. However, the downsides are also pretty harsh. This can be a very, very boring way to play the game. You just log in and you run 5 Majiro McQueen runs, one right after another, and you didn't get anything. Well, that's my Umamusme for the day. They are less powerful than a purpose-built legacy. If you plan out everything in your legacy, it can be a lot less powerful than this parent. The last main downside is it is very hard to do in Track Blazer, mostly because of how aptitudes work. If you don't have good mile aptitude, you're probably not doing very well in Track Blazer, which makes these parent loops much harder to do. What are my closing thoughts? Legacies and their proper usage is absolutely essential to succeed in Umamusume. Without their proper usage, you will never see Platinum in Champions Meeting or see higher ranks in your team trial teams. Mastering their usage is one of the steps necessary to becoming an expert trainer. Thank you so much for watching. This one has been a long one, so thank you for sticking out till the very end. Please like and subscribe if you learned anything. Check out my other videos, such as my first video in this series, or my video on how to get Commander Special Week. Leave a comment correcting anything that I might have gotten wrong, or any questions or suggestions you may have. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.